Okay, welcome to the DVT Positioning Tools online meeting. This was actually billed as training on the Fiducial tool, but I thought it would make sense to go ahead and take a look at all the positioning tools while we're at it, and sort of compare and contrast the functionality of all the positioning tools, and then look at the Fiducial tool in a little bit more closer detail. I'm going to start out with a actual sort of an end game of what we're looking at. Let's cancel this. Here is an application using the Fiducial tool. This is a very typical application for using the Fiducial tool, where you need a positioning tool to find an edge and locate some text, typically for OCR in the XS reader. The Fiducial tool is the only positioning tool that's available in the XS readers. You see here 5 different types of positioning tools in the rest of the DVT family of cameras. And the Fiducial tool is also available in all the cameras. But again, it's the only one that's available in the XS, which many times is doing barcode reading, but also has the ability to do OCR. So as I click through these images, you see the text moving around, and I've only got the OCR tool itself in focus, so you see it tracking with it as it moves around. Now if I turn on all the tools and click through them, you'll see the green lines around the text. That's really the Fiducial tool that's coming up from the bottom and from the right side of the screen until it contacts an edge, and in this case it's this text. And you'll see later that the Fiducial tool can be configured to look from any direction, top, bottom, left, or right. But this is sort of the end goal, finding the objects that are in the field of view so that we can inspect them accurately by putting our tools down in the right place based on where we locate the edges and the information. So go back to the presentation here. So the objective here is to just get familiar with the positioning tools. I'll go through and apply each of them very briefly, and you'll be able to describe and hopefully know how to use the different, or know when in types of applications when you might use the different positioning tools. And then more specifically, not listed here, is have a good understanding of how the Fiducial tool works. Here's a typical outline of what you do when you're solving an application. Obviously, you got to get an image, but then the first thing we need to do after you get an image is secure positioning, whether that be through fixturing or more likely through software positioning, and being able to again locate the part and fixture our tools so that they are ending up in the right place on our part every time. And then once we get positioned, we can lay down our tools and do our inspections and analysis, and then communicate it on to external devices. But we're going to, obviously for this meeting, we're going to look at positioning tools specifically. Lots of different applications. Pretty much every vision inspection uses positioning of some sort. That's really one of the strengths of it. We don't have to fixture the parts that we're inspecting perfectly because we can fixture our inspection tools onto the part as it appears in the field of view. So just about any vision inspection is going to have a need for positioning tools. This is reiterating what positioning tools do functionally, but then also the information that's available from the positioning tool many times is coordinates that can then be sent out to a robot or a PLC to give positional information. Sometimes a positioning tool can be used simply as a locating tool, and then its coordinates sent out directly from there, and that may be all the inspection that's necessary in some cases. There's our famous gasket application here. Obviously a number of different inspections that need to be done to this thing in terms of locations of holes and sizes and spacings and whether or not it's made out of good material. So obviously these inspection tools, as they're numbered here, need to be laid down in the same place every time in order for them to be valid. Thus the need for a positioning tool. And we'll actually work with this application here in a little bit. Again, applications looking for X and Y location, as well as orientation and scale variations. Another benefit of some of the positioning tools. Now, they don't all provide this information, but that will be part of the determining factors as to which positioning tool that you would use on an application is what data do you need out of it, in addition to what are the conditions in the image that are going to lend itself more to one positioning tool or another. But the object locate positioning tool specifically gives us the ability to accept scale variations and report them within plus or minus 20%. The big picture of positioning tools in Intellect, they show up under the positioning menu, as you see here, 5 different types along a line: area positioning, line fit, circle fit, and Fiducial. And you can see that once you select one of those types, within those types there are variations. For instance, just this position along the line, you can do a simple position along the line to find the first edge, or you could also use it to find a pattern of edges, if you will, along the line. So a lot of different variations. We're not going to be able to go into all these in detail today. We're going to try to hit the high points and then put a little more emphasis on the Fiducial tool down here and show you how that works. Again, the way you get to these, the way you navigate to them in Intellect is simply click on the positioning header in the toolbox, and then give them a little description here of how these different tools work. I'd rather just show you, so I'm going to click through that. Position along the line is really the simplest and the easiest to implement, and it also runs very fast. That's its primary advantage, is its speed and its ease of use. The limitations, however, is that obviously it only gives you information in one axis. So if you need X and Y position, you'd have to use at least 2 of them. Depending on the variation of your part, you could actually miss the part with your positioning tool with this type of a finder. So I'm going to switch over to Intellect here and show you one of these. Okay, I'm going to switch to a different product here. Over to our gasket. Actually, why don't we do this one? And then I've got to browse out and get some different images. Quickly here, we're going to look at a diskette. Okay, so what I've got here is a number of positioning tools already built into this product or this application. And I'm going to show only the focus tool, as you see down here in the results table. And I've got a position along the line here, and it's simply built by clicking that instruction from the toolbar and dragging a line across the edge of the object, giving it a name, so position line we'll call it, and under the options we can simply do an edge find here, and if we do the edge find and say any edge, all we're simply going to do is locate this edge. And as we click through the varying products, you see that this tracks with the edge. So very simple. This other one that I've got on here already, though, is a position along the line. I'm going to double click on it and open up the properties box. And you see on the shape, I've, instead of under the options, instead of just a simple edge find, I've gone with pattern match. And what that does is identifies a pattern of edges along the line. So in the case of this diskette, as I cycle through the images and the diskette slider changes, you'll see down here in the results table that our pattern no longer matches. This is the focus tool. The percentage of match is going to vary greatly as that slider moves back and forth. Okay. Can you see the, if you can't see the results table down at the bottom, Joe, let me, what's that?
It is visible.
It is visible? Okay, good. Line position. This guy is failing now. There it passed. This is where I trained it, was with the slider open. And so that's 100% match. And then as I change that, obviously it no longer matches, so we only get a 70%. So it's a pretty neat tool for a simple pattern match. But it also, its primary function is to do positioning. And so it's looking for the pattern along this line, and that's how it would position our tools if we use this as a reference. Okay. Let's see. Head back over to the presentation here. And the next type is position along the line pattern match. I already mentioned that, but here's a neat application of it in a rotary orientation. So again, here you see it's looking for a particular pattern and will give a percentage of match to a given pattern. The advantage of this over a typical pattern match is that it's simple and it's only along a line, so it's going to execute quickly. Obviously, the disadvantage is that it's not going to be as accurate because it's not going to take as much information into consideration to compare. Okay, the next type of positioning tool is area positioning. It's when we're looking at a larger area than just something along a line. There's three different types within area positioning. I'll go over all of them before we flip over and actually look at them in Intellect. The blob task is or the blob positioning tool, essentially uses blob tools within a positioning tool to find blobs in their particular location and then give out X, Y, and rotational information based on where it finds them and how accurately it finds them. It does give a center of mass, if you will, and then obviously it shows up in green as it says here. It is simple to set up, but it can be slower because it's processing so much information. I'm going to skip that slide. The other type of area of positioning is object locate. This is probably the one that I use the most because it's fast and it's also very accurate. It's fast because it's based on edges. This is somewhat similar in function to Pat Find, if you're familiar with the Insight family, because this also is interested in edges and the geometric shape, more so than it's interested in the grayscale levels of the material itself. So again, it is less susceptible to lighting changes. So it's good when you have good contrast or when you have crisp edges like this. It may run a little bit slower than the edge tools, like the Find Along line, but it's still a very fast tool, positioning tool. And then the other variation of in the area positioning is the pattern match. This is more of the traditional pattern match type algorithm, where it's just looking for the pixels to have a very similar grayscale level as a model does. So it is good at discriminating between similar parts, and it does give good accuracy because it looks at each individual pixel. Disadvantages obviously are then that it takes more time to calculate all that. And this one does not calculate angle or scale differences. So as I mentioned earlier, sometimes that's what you need out of your positioning tool is the angle and or the scale. You don't get that from the pattern match tool where you would from the object locate. And this one also is thrown off greatly by light changes. So let's jump back over to the Intellect again, and I'll show you some of these. And I'm not going to draw them all. I've already got them created in this application, so I'll just show you how they operate by clicking on them as a focus tool down here. Here's a blob positioning tool. And you see what happens with it is it in the search region, let me get to that. Oops, pardon me. This is the search region, but the trained region was really more just this slider part of the diskette. And as you see that moving, you see the blob moves with it. And the score down below is staying fairly consistent, 99, 98, 100%, because for all practical purposes, that blob is staying consistent. So it's fairly simple tool. Now the pattern match, and I've got it in focus now, looks very similar and also has similar results. And granted, this is not the best example of all these tools, but it was a simple example where I could show all of them working a little bit. One other thing to notice down here in the results table is the different amount of time that it takes to execute these. All these positioning tools are executing each time I step through the images. And you can see that the, let's see here, the pattern match, and sometimes my times don't update. There we go. The blob has taken about 15 milliseconds, relatively speaking. The pattern match has taken about 15. And the object locate, let's look at that one next. It's taken about 15 milliseconds as well. And again, this is a relative time. It's going to vary based on whichever camera you use. Now, the position along the line, I'm backing up, it is so fast that it doesn't even register in our time measurement down here. So it's a very fast tool. So speed is critical. Obviously, the simpler tools are better. Okay. I was on the object locate. Bear with me as I jump around here. Now I've got the object locate tool in focus. And you can see in the image that it's the edges now that are highlighted. And so, again, in applications where the edges are going to be crisp and identifiable, Object Locate is an excellent positioning tool that does report rotation, as you can see down here in the result table. X, Y, and rotational information reported from this guy. Okay. Now, while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and show you the other two, or a couple of more. The line fit positioning tools essentially are very similar to a position along a line. However, it's doing a line fit. So essentially, in this region of interest that I have drawn now on the diskette, instead of just a single line, it's a series of lines. Every scan line that the camera does, there's a position along a line tool essentially coming against the edge of this diskette here. And so what it does is gives an X position, or a position along the horizontal axis, but it also gives an angle, as you can see, being rotated or reported down here in the minimum distance tool. You see an X, a Y position, and then you also see some additional information, min, max, and median. I've used a variation of the line fit tool called minimum distance. And what that does is reports the minimum distance from the origin of the tool, which is over here to the left, where the blue box begins, to the edge of the object, in this case the diskette. So when this diskette is at an angle, we calculate the minimum distance, the maximum distance, and the median distance. All that information is provided from this line fit tool. And we can select which of those we want to emphasize. I'll open up the line fit tool here. This is how it's applied. You take a stroke in one direction and then the other, and release it. You name the tool, and then when you go into the options, here's where you can pick the minimum distance, the maximum distance, or the median distance to be reported. And you also have in each of these more granular settings. First edge found. Many times you can select the best edge found, and you can also select which type of edge. Any edge, dark to light or light to dark. And then also in just about all these positioning tools, you have the ability to choose whether it's a binary image, whether the positioning tool converts the image to a binary, which is what basically auto-bimodal means. It automatically adjusts to the conditions and converts the image into a black and white image, essentially, and creates very distinct edges by doing so. We can also, if you need more flexibility, you can pick a fixed value and set essentially the levels between black and white. And a couple other variations here. Gradient gives you the ability to do some grayscale interpretation of your positioning tool. Most generally, we're going to leave that on auto bimodal. It automatically sets the best binary levels. So again, number of different ways to adjust any of the given positioning tools. And again, it really depends on what information you want to get out of your positioning tool and what the application is. What variables do you have to work around in order to get a good solid position of your part. Also, in each of these positioning tools, there is a pass-fail criterion. And again, it is somewhat depending on what the features of that positioning tool are. In the case of the line fit, when we selected a distance functionality built into the tool, we have the ability to set a minimum and maximum distance. So now we have some inspection capability already built into just our positioning tool. So I'm going to cancel out of that guy. The circle fit, while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and address the circle fit. Oops. Bear with me as I click around. Okay, we'll go ahead and do the circle fit here. The circle fit is very similar to the line fit. The difference is that when you click, you're drawing circles. And again, here we're just looking for edges that are circular. Pretty straightforward. No options other than changing whether it's binary or grayscale and what color of an edge we're looking for. In this case, we're looking for a, see, we're searching from the outside in, so we're looking for a white to black image or edge, light to dark. Okay. And so we locate circular edges using the circle fit tool. Works very good for gears and any type of circular part. Okay, let me jump back over to the presentation real quick here. So we've talked about the area positioning types, the object locate really being the positioning tool. To me, if you had to default to one, this would probably be the one. However, again, when speed is an issue, the line tools are going to be a little bit faster, and possibly even the Fiducial tool, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. Already mentioned and showed you how the line fit works. Here's a little better graphical representation of it. You can see where the blue box is drawn. You get a number of lines that scan in the area or in the direction of the arrows on the blue box and determine this edge along the part. And so obviously, by the nature of it, it's going to report angle, a minimum distance, a maximum distance, and a median distance. Okay, already talked about this. Again, these are also pretty fast tools because we're just doing simple lines and edges. Do min, max, and median, as we've discussed. Here's a graphical representation of the circle fit tool, as I've already demonstrated. Again, it's fast because it's relatively edge-based as opposed to gradient and pixel-based. That says the limitations of this is that the position is reported based on the image origin, and in many of the other cases, especially the cases of the line-based tools, the position is reported based on the origin of the line. So usually that doesn't come into play, but sometimes if you're wanting to know position relative to an origin that's true to the camera, you probably don't want to use a line fit tool because the origin or the position is given out relative to the origin of the line. So in the case of the circle fit, the position is reported based on the image origin, which can be known and preset and communicated over to a robot or an external device. Okay, the Fiducial tool, which was kind of the emphasis of our meeting today. We've only got about 10 minutes to wrap up on it, which it should be sufficient because it is a fairly simple tool. It does have now the ability to report angles. It does work with multiple shapes, and it does have an edge filter. Originally, the Fiducial tool was in our framework software, and it was a very simple locating tool. When Intellect was rolled out, the Fiducial tool was left out originally, but many people liked it because of its simplicity, so we've brought it back, and that's why we're putting a little extra emphasis on it in this meeting, is because it's new to Intellect. And again, its primary use is in the XS reader, because when you're using an XS reader, generally you'll just use the whole field of view and look for a barcode. Because of the way the barcode tools work, you really don't use a position reference for them. As a matter of fact, I was trying to set one up, and the barcode tools work better without a position reference. However, OCR is, those tools are very position critical, and so they need positioning tools. And so without some sort of positioning tool, it was very difficult to get an OCR application to work in the XS reader. So now the Fiducial tool is back into the XS readers, making it a good tool now to locate character strings and read them. And the Fiducial tool is very fast. And that's important in the XS scanner, because many times label reading applications are high speed. Let's see. Now, the Fiducial tool has been enhanced from its the way it used to work in Framework. It simply, I believe, would just come from the top left. Now, however, you can configure the tool to scan in all four directions, as is shown in this top icon here. So in this case, you come in from all sides and locate the outer edge of the part in all directions, and so find out its its outer perimeter, and also the angle that it's oriented. You can, in a different mode, scan only from a couple of sides or a single side to find the first edge in that direction, which many times a single point is all you need to put down an inspection tool. And we'll do a couple of these in the example. I'll show you a case where we come from all four sides and determine the angle, and a case where we come in from two sides to determine XY position. There's another enhancement to the Fiducial tool in Intellect that makes it much more usable than it was in Framework, and that is the edge filter. Many times if you had a noisy image, the Fiducial tool would pick up the noise before it even got close to finding the part, and would report a position, and there wasn't really a part anywhere near. It was just picking up noise. But now we can set essentially an edge width filter, tell it that something that we encounter, an edge that we encounter, I should say, must be X number of pixels before it's considered to be an edge. And that allows us to ignore noisy situations in the background. So let me switch over quickly to Intellect again. And I'm going to browse out and pick a different set of images quickly. Here in the Fiducials, I have, again, our barcode label application, essentially. And I'm going to switch to a different product. Okay. In this case, we've got a Fiducial tool already drawn. Let me go ahead and take that out, and we'll start from scratch here. Okay. First thing we want to do is find this text. What I want to do in this application is read OCT, this October, and make sure that that is printed on each envelope that comes through, or each label that comes through. And as we cycle through these images here, you can see that it does move around quite a bit. So we're going to have to position that or locate it. So in order to do that, I want to use a Fiducial tool. Now if we were using an XS reader, again, the Fiducial is the only choice that we would have. So I'm going to select the Fiducial tool, and I'm going to draw it along the right and bottom of this text. And I'm going to call that FID1. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the settings, and I'm looking for dark fiducials, and I'm going to come from the bottom and the right, and I'm going to turn off the top and the left. Apply that, hit OK, and you see it highlights for us. Let me cycle through the image, make sure we're going to track. We're doing okay, but it looks like I need to be possibly a little bit higher. I'm going to stretch that out. Click on this tool, make it a little taller that way. Okay. Here we go. Cycle through again. Looks like I need to be a little further to the left here as well. Clicking on my tool, stretching them out. All right. There we go. So now we're tracking, and notice down here in the results table, we're reporting XY position, but no rotation, because we're not going to get that from just an X and a Y. Because all this is reporting is the first time it finds an edge coming from the bottom, or the first place, I should say, and the first edge that it locates coming from the right. So we cycle through and we get that done. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and put a reader on here and see if we can read this OCT. Click on Readers, OCR tool. I'm going to go down along the side of this O, and then go across like this. Okay, I'm going to call this OCR. I'm going to go to Training. I'm going to say my string is OCT. And I'm going to call this, new font is good. Say Train Now. Font 3 is good enough. Okay. Come down here, character information. It says that we read an O, a C, and a T. Gives us some information on those. And we come out here and you see that each of the characters has got a green box around it. And there, in our results table down below, you see we're reading OCT. It's passing. It's working great. So let's cycle through. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So we're tracking up and down, but we're losing. We're losing it in many cases. Let's see. So we need a little bit more horsepower in our finding tool. So what we can do is add another fiducial. Oh, you know what I didn't do is reference my OCR tool. Sorry about that. Because my OCR tool wasn't tracking very well at all. Position reference now has to be the fiducial. I apply that. Okay. Now let's go. There we go. That's looking better. It's tracking up and down. Okay. That's looking pretty good. And we don't have a lot of orientation, and so we're fortunate that in this case that would be good enough. But in the case that this thing might rotate a little bit more, let's go ahead and put on another fiducial tool, referencing this first one. that will take into consideration any rotational variation that we might get on this label. So I'm going to go back to my toolbox, go back to positioning tools, and grab another fiducial. And in this one I'm going to draw all the way around this text. And I'm going to call it rotate find. Okay. And here, I'm not going to forget this time, I'm going to make its position reference the first fiducial. So its XY is already going to be located for us. So we don't have to worry about running into the other text and things that are obviously all over this label. We're essentially going to be basing our origin right on the bottom right corner of the text and coming in from around where I've drawn the box. So it's a much more localized finder. Apply that, go to my settings, and here I'm still looking for a dark fiducial, and I'm going to come in from all sides, top, left, right, and bottom, and I'm going to ask it to give me an angle calculation of plus 90 to minus 90. I'm going to apply that and hit OK. So now down in the results table we have again I'm looking at, I guess this is an X and a Y, 329 by 252, yeah, and then here's our angle being reported. So as I click now through these images, you'll see that there is some variation in that text. It's just that our OCR tool was set up. I got lucky basically, and the OCR tool had enough flexibility in it that it would handle this couple of degree variation. But if we should encounter 5 or 10 degree variation, this fiducial is now going to handle that for us and still apply our OCR tool in the right orientation. So that's really about all there is to the fiducial. Let me jump back to the presentation quickly, and we'll wrap this up. So once again, and by review, the Fiducial tool is the only positioning tool that you'll get in the XS Reader, but it's generally all you need because the primary thing that you're looking for is text strings. And it's very fast. That's one of the big advantages of the Fiducial tool. It's a very fast operating tool. I should get some more information. Here we go. The ability to come in from all sides now is nice when you have a rectangular shape to report an angle on. And again, it does have the edge width filter, so we can use it in noisy environments or places where our images are not perfect. So in summary, 5 different ways to do positioning in the DVT family. As we've reviewed, positioning along a line in an area, we do line fit, circle fit, and then also now the Fiducial positioning tool. And then area positioning tools, object locate really being the choice in terms of accuracy, and also it's a pretty fast operating tool as well. It has been, object locate that is, has been optimized recently in Intellect. It has been streamlined to make it run faster and operate even more effectively. And object locate is also incorporated into the new FFD, flexible flaw detection tool. But position tools, obviously, as we've mentioned, can give out position as a reference to our other inspection tools, but it can also be used as a source of data for external applications that are looking for part location, or robots where it's looking to come in and operate on the part. So, critical piece of your vision application, and it's one of the first things that you're going to have to apply when you look at an application, is what is the best way to position this tool. So hopefully you now have an understanding of the different ways that you can do that within the Intellect family. And I believe that is all I have. Are there any questions or anything that you'd like to see readdressed in a little more detail?
That was excellent, Rick. A good review on positioning and a very good description for the Fiducial tool.
Great. Any questions, Joe?
No, I'm going to have to go play with it for a little bit and see if I run into anything that I missed. Okay.
Well, very good. Thanks for tuning in. And I didn't look at the schedule, but I'm sure we've got something fresh and exciting queued up for next week. So if I don't talk to you before then, have a good weekend, and we'll see you then.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care, Joe.
The moderator has disconnected. At this time, the conference will be terminated.